And then they got lucky because they happened to be sitting on a bunch of oil and gas that has now made them richer than they can possibly imagine. But the money doesn't bring legitimacy. The money just makes them rich. Legitimacy has to come from standing for something. Standing for something. They don't stand for democracy. They don't stand for liberty. They don't stand for justice. They're just rich. That's it. And they believe that they could sit there and leverage their control of the United States into controlling Iran. But it turned out that it was the United States controlling them, using them on behalf of Israel. And that truth has now come out. That truth has been played out in broad daylight by Iran. This is one of the greatest gifts Iran's given to the region and the world by bringing everything to a head. Everything to a head. The world will now get to see what kind of country Iran is. They'll get to see the support that the Iranian people provide to their country. And they'll also get to see the fact that the United States has been using the Gulf Arab states on behalf of Israel for decades. And they'll get to see what Israel's real plans are, that Israel is nothing more than a genocidal state wrapped into a tiny piece of territory with meaningless biblical reference. I mean, throw away the Bible and what do you have? Nothing. So the Bible is, what these Zionists are abusing to pretend that they have legitimacy, that they are God's chosen, that somehow Israel, the Israel of today, is part of a 3,000-year-old legacy. This is what, of course, the Christian Zionists believe, Mike Huckabee and Ted Cruz and others. And we're exposing the perversion of their thought, the illegitimacy of their thought. So this war, in many ways, is a clarifying moment. It's a tragic moment. And I wish it hadn't come to this. But now that it's here, we might as well just embrace all ramifications and call it out as we see it. It's not a time to hold back. It's not a time to continue to shield the truth. It's time to be brutally honest about everything. If you're out there and you want to be pro-Israel, say it. Acknowledge it. Be honest about it. Be honest. Because the people are tired of the lies. They're tired of the lies. It's time we have the truth. And if America truly wants to be a nation that has foregone its status as a constitutional republic, wants to operate as nothing more than a collective of sheep underneath the cult of personality, serving the interests of greater Israel, fine. Fine. Just be honest about it. We have an election coming up. Tell the American people that's what they're voting for. When you vote for me, Donald Trump, or vote for my party, what you're voting for is greater Israel. We're not hiding it. It's there. We're voting for greater Israel, and we're not voting for the Constitution. You're voting to empower me, a cult of personality. I will continue to rename buildings in my name. I will continue to drop banners with my face. I will continue to make sure that everything centers around me, Donald Trump. If you can't see as an American what's happening, what other sitting president has operated with this degree of hubris and narcissistic arrogance? None. America is infected with a sickness, a disease that's destroying what we are. And what we're doing in the world today is just facilitating the downward slide of our nation. We do need to resize ourselves. We have to understand that we aren't the sole remaining superpower, that the world is not conditioned to continue American hegemony. That doesn't mean America goes away, though. We just have to resize ourselves to the appropriate size, the size we should be of a nation of 340 million people with the natural resources that we have. But that means we have to learn how to live in, as equals with Russia, with China, with India, with others. But we can't live as equals. We're the most arrogant people on the planet, other than the Israelis. And we've subordinated ourselves to the Israelis. So there we go.
Scott, today Pete Hegseth was asked if he gonna put troops on the ground in Iran, and they didn't answer the question. They said they're not gonna answer it, and this is one of the main questions right now in the mind of our audience. They want to know what is your understanding of that. The other point is that many rumors they're talking about they're bringing Syrian ISIS group and Kurds. They're gonna go underground. What is your understanding of these sort of rumors and some sort of ideologies that they think that they can put troops on the ground? It doesn't seem that the Trump administration is willing to do that.
Well, you remember I told you I was pulled out of amphibious warfare school to go on a planning staff for the Commandant of the Marine Corps to plan amphibious operations. This was in September of 1990. The United States was in the process of moving 700,000+ troops into the region to fight a war with Iraq, including hundreds of thousands of ground troops, ground combat troops, many divisions worth of troops. Back then, we were geared to do this, because we had, first of all, we had a whole bunch of forces in Europe that we were able to take an entire corps and transfer it to the Middle East. The Marine Corps had had equipment on ships, brigades worth of equipment, adding up to about a division's worth plus. And we could take these ships and offload them at ports and then fly Marines in. They'd marry up with this equipment and we'd be able to move on. This was the Cold War, where we were prepared to move hundreds of thousands of troops at a moment's notice. In fact, the entire reinforcement of Germany option was premised on the notion that we would have 300,000 troops in West Germany, and within 10 days, we could reinforce them with 250,000 troops. So we were geared, we were prepared to move 250,000 troops in 10 days. Today, if we want to send a heavy brigade to Europe today as part of the rotational reinforcement of forces, it takes 6 months advance notice to get that unit ready to move. So they have to do all sorts of stuff to get themselves ready to deploy. And then they have to actually load their stuff on trains, take it down to ships, load it on ships, sail the ships across the sea, offload it. And that's at a friendly port. They're offloading in the port of Hamburg. Now imagine if we want to take that same brigade and take it to Iran. Well, it's going to take 6 months to get them up. If they want to speed it up, good luck, because they're not ready. But now they get on their ships and they start moving. What port are they going to offload at? Because remember, we got to go to Iran. With Iraq, we were able to offload in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia and then move our forces up and concentrate them, array them along the line of contact and carry out a ground war. How are we going to do this? Are we going to land in Saudi Arabia? Are the Saudis ready to have hundreds of thousands of Americans land on the western provinces near Mecca, Medina? And then how are we going to move them across, position them in Kuwait? Because we can't take them to Kuwait anymore. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. The ships will be sunk as they move in. As we start to offload, Iranian missiles will start pounding the port, blowing up the ships, killing the troops, destroying the logistics. So we can't do that. We can't fly them in because all the airfields are under attack. And then once we get them off the plane, where do we put them? In a giant camp that says, blow me up? No. So we have two options. We can land in Western Saudi Arabia or land in Jordan through Israel. And then build up a force in Jordan, and then move through Iraq. Logistically, this will be a nightmare, but we could do that. Move through to get to the Iraqi-Iranian border, where we then would have to cross in. Have you looked at a map of Iran? Have you seen the mountain ranges that separate Iran and Iraq from, say, Tehran, the seat of power, or from anywhere? So it's not a flat plain that we get to drive in through there like Germany and go straight. We'll be going through mountainous terrain where the Iranians have been preparing for decades to receive us and destroy us and annihilate us. So we have that option. It would take us 9 months to more than a year and a half to build up the forces capable of carrying out such an operation. Or we could get the Marine Corps and say, you need to do a seizure of a port. We used to train for that. In 1985, I actually helped write the plan for the seizure of Chabahar and Bandar Abbas. I'm familiar intimately with what the intelligence was at that time, what we would need to do, how we move forces in. But we had a Marine Corps geared to do that back then. We're not geared to do that today. How do we get, it would take, we'd have to use at least 3 brigades in the initial assault. How do we get 3 brigades on the ships? I don't think we can anymore. But if we could, how do we get them close to the Iranian shore without getting sunk? This is a problem that General Berger saw when he became the commandant a couple of years ago. He said, we can't fulfill our mission because we're linked to legacy-style amphibious operations that put 1,000 Marines on a big ship. And in order to get those Marines off the ship, we have to bring it close to shore and they get sunk. So how do we do this? With all due respect to Pete Hegseth, he just simply doesn't know what he's talking about. It's just crazy talk, insane talk. So now we get to, Plan B, where CIA paramilitaries, Joint Special Operations, and Special Forces start to work with, indigenous forces to create, indigenous proxies, militias, resistance groups, et cetera. We know some exist. We have the Baluchi Liberation Army working out of Pakistan. CIA has a long history of working with them. We have the Kurds. We've been working with the Kurds forever. We got Azeris that could come in. Lor. I think you're familiar with the Lor people, sort of in the Kurdish area, but separate from the Kurds. We got the Avaz Arabs. We got MEK. It's always out there. Although I don't think the Iranian people will rise up and rally around MEK, but they're very good at being used to disable, blow up, and destroy things. And we got the monarchists that can always raise a flag, shout death to Khamenei, and then run away. So now right now the decision apparently has been made to arm the Kurds. I don't know. Are you familiar with Kurdish history? It's never a good idea to arm the Kurds because two things always happen. The Kurds lose, and then they get betrayed and abandoned. But the other thing is, yes, we can go into northern Iraq and we can mobilize Kurds there. What is Turkey going to do? Sit there and go, that's a good idea. Why don't you get the Kurds riled up, believing there's going to be a free and independent Kurdistan, because that never blows back to Turkey. It's not like we have a significant chunk of territory that the Kurds want as well. This is why Turkey has intervened so harshly in both northern Iraq and in Syria to stomp down any notion of a free and independent Kurdistan. So Turkey's not going to let the United States come in and arm 10, 20,000 Kurds and say, march and take over. That's just not going to happen. Meanwhile, I think the Iranians are already on top of this, and they're already launching preemptive strikes into Suleimania and other areas, breaking up these Kurdish groups as they build up. But once again, the Kurds are just going to be given the short end of the stick. It's I wouldn't want to be a Kurd because they're just going to get used, abused, and slaughtered again. Basically, we have no options. None. Now, had the CIA and Hegseth and everybody sat down with real experts and held a panel discussion, they would have known this up front. And they sat down with real experts about Iran. It's funny. Some of the big advisors out there are guys who served in Task Force 17. Ooh, JSOC, baby. Delta Force. These guys are good. They got big muscles and they got tattoos. They're really good at jumping out of helicopters and sprinting into buildings and killing people. So be it. Hooray, Delta. But they were supposed to carry out this covert war against the Quds Force, Qasem Soleimani, in Iraq and all this stuff. And so you have these thick-necked knuckle draggers, some of whom are, smart enough to have learned Farsi. And they were involved in a campaign that they lost ultimately. But now they're the ones posturing themselves as regional experts and providing the advice. And these are the people saying that the Iranian people want to be overthrown, that they hate the regime, so we got Delta Force knuckle dragging losers, guys who haven't won a war yet, big L stapled on their heads. They probably got their ass kicked in Afghanistan. They came over and got their ass kicked in southern Iraq. And then they went home and started thinking about their relevance in the world. So they started selling themselves as regional, a subject matter expert is a term they like to use. And they just are ignorant. If they've been in Iran, it's because they landed there one night to insert somebody or extract somebody or to plant a device or to do something. But they haven't wandered the streets of Tehran interacting with the Iranian people, talking about to them. They haven't gone to Kashan. They haven't gone to any of the places that were blowing up. They didn't go to Minab. They certainly didn't meet with the families of the school children that were slaughtered by the bombs. These people know nothing about Iran. Nothing about Iran. And yet they're the ones saying, no, all we have to do is kill Ali Khamenei and the system comes down. But had they talked to real experts, they would have known that killing Ali Khamenei will only strengthen the system, that it will backfire. And that's exactly what happened. We did succeed in getting, President Trump, congratulations. Good job, man. Because you did what you wanted to do. You wanted the Iranian people to rise up and take matters into their own hands. And they have. They've risen up. And they said, we are behind the government. We are supporting the martyr, Ali Khamenei. We are supporting the new supreme leader, Ali Khamenei's son, Mujab, I think his name is. I could be mispronouncing that, but that's what I do for a living. So apologies. But the point is, we are so far removed from reality. We don't respect anything. We treat the Iranians as if they're a bunch of camel jockey, ragheads, sand niggers, whatever other derogatory term we can use and have used in the past to describe the people of the Middle East, instead of one of the most cultured, refined, dignified people the world has ever seen, with a history that goes back thousands of years. And the Iranian people, even if you're an Islamist supporting the Islamic Republic, you embrace that history, you respect your culture, and you want these people to sell out this legacy that they have. It's just not going to happen. But we're ignorant of this, and now not only are we blowing up, we're blowing up history. I've heard stories. I just hope it's not true, but I've heard stories about blowing up. In Tehran, we're blowing up some of the old Qajar. And again, I might be mispronouncing that. That might be called pronounced differently, but what I'm talking about.
It's good. It's good. Your pronunciation is good.
I'm safe. There was a time when I was trying to pronounce Bab el-Mandeb, and I was just fumbling it left and right 20 times. And somebody did this really cool meme because it showed me, the Bab and they're like, oh, the Bab and finally I go, the Bab el-Mandeb, and there's a whole group of yay. So I try. I really do. But the Qajar dynasty, the art, the history, the culture there. When I went to Iran, I was guided by a Revolutionary Guard escort, but he took me to these places, and he was in awe of the beauty. They revere their history, and I think we've blown it up. And I think we're blowing up places in Isfahan, we're blowing up places in Shiraz, we're blowing up places in Kashan. What we're doing to Iran is cultural genocide, but we don't care because we have no comprehension of who the Iranians are and appreciation of what they are. We don't know what their history is. And all we're doing is aligning ourselves with the nation Israel, which is fully capable of committing genocide against a nation of 90 million, as they were with committing genocide against a population of 3 million in Gaza.
Yeah. Scott, when Hegseth is giving us a timeline, of the war, and he's talking about 4 days, then 4 weeks, and right now, I don't know how long does it take. It reminds me, I don't know if you saw the video comparing Rumsfeld to Pete Hegseth today. The same, it seems that they're talking about the same sort of, idea when it comes to war. It doesn't seem that Pete Hegseth, because he was part of he said that he was in the Middle East. He know what was the war, but he doesn't remember what was the mindset that brought him to the Middle East, to that war, which was simply the Bush, presidency, that the people around President Bush, that they thought that they could, wrap it up in a short period of time, which didn't happen. Here is comparing the two, Rumsfeld to Pete Hegseth.
I can't tell you if the use of force in Iraq today would last 5 days or 5 weeks or 5 months, but it certainly isn't going to last any longer than that.
President Trump has all the latitude in the world to talk about how long it may or may not take. 4 weeks, 2 weeks, 6 weeks. It could move up. It could move back.
Yeah. How someone who was in this war in Iraq, in Afghanistan, I don't know where he was, but he doesn't understand the reality of what's going on, and he doesn't see the threat of a long war. I think that is really happening. It's going to be a long war. It's not going to be a short, but it doesn't seem that is totally perceived by the Trump administration.
I'm just quick going through Hegseth's resume. It's not very impressive. He enlisted. He was commissioned in the military. He did tours in Afghanistan and Iraq. When I look at it, he has the combat infantryman's badge, but when I look at his Bronze Star, it's a slick star, which means that it wasn't awarded for heroism. So this is a man who, at the time they were just handing out awards left and right for anybody deployed. This is a man who's not seen hard combat. He doesn't know what hard combat is. And this is a man who never rose to any, significant position of authority. He hasn't commanded troops in combat at the battalion level or any level above that. So we need to be careful when Pete Hegseth starts talking about, I've been there, I've done that. We also need to judge Pete Hegseth on his own words. If you recall, when he addressed 800 American generals and admirals in Quantico in October of 2025, I think, last year. He defined what he considered to be the epitome of the military standard, and basically said it's 1993, an 03 captain, or an E6 staff sergeant. Well, guess what, Pete? Guess who was a captain in 1993? Me. I'm the epitome. I'm that which you have never been and you will never be. I'm the guy that actually trained during the height of the Cold War when the American military truly was the finest military in the world. I am somebody who has been schooled in the proper ethos of military service, one that is founded in the Constitution and premised on absolute professionalism in everything we do. This is pre-politicization, pre-woke, pre-DEI, pre-anything. This is when men were really men. And the staff sergeants I dealt with were the same way. I am everything you will never be, Pete. I'm a professional. You're a frickin' amateur, purely an amateur. And what you are is a bitter amateur. You're somebody who wishes you were something you'll never be, and therefore you're posturing to be that instead of being the Secretary of Defense. So Pete Hegseth is just a walking, talking joke of a human being. He's not qualified for the position he's in. And again, it's just time for us to be honest. We just have to start calling these things out. We can't pretend that Pete Hegseth is qualified to be doing what he's doing. Because as long as we pretend that, then it's okay for him to sit there and show this kind of vacillation. My God, do you have a war plan or not, Pete? Simple question, yes or no? A war plan or not? Because you seem to be making it up every single day of the week. You wake up tomorrow and things have changed, and now you're giving a press conference where you're changing the parameters. If you were going to put troops on the ground, you should have thought about that 9 months ago, and they should be moving in place as we speak, instead of now speaking about the possibility. And what president doesn't know what they're doing? You know, Cheney was speaking in 2002, but you forget that Cheney was the Secretary of Defense during Desert Storm, Desert Shield. He knows what it means to move troops. We also forget that before Dick Cheney became overly politicized as Secretary of Defense, he put the brakes on and advanced to Baghdad at the end of the Gulf War. After we had crushed the Iraqi army on the field of battle, there were people who were saying we should go ahead and finish it off, go up to Baghdad. And Cheney said no. He said, because if we break it, we own it. If we occupy it, we gotta take responsibility for it. We're not ready to do that. We don't have a plan for that. Dick Cheney understood you have to have a plan that's been thought out, advised by experts. Now, he forgot everything before we went to war in Iraq, and you see the results. We went to war in Iraq on a plan that was half-assed. We didn't have a plan for success, and we didn't know what we were doing. We ended up occupying the country with a czar. What was the guy's name? Paul. I can't remember his name now, but the guy who ran the country, and he basically demobilized the Iraqi army and went into de-Baathification and basically eliminated the one thing that was holding Iraq together. And then Iraq devolves into chaos and anarchy, sectarian warfare, and all that stuff. We're stuck in the middle, and the rest is history. We broke it. We got driven out. I don't know what Hegseth thinks he's doing, because we went to war on a half-assed plan that was there to appease greater Israel. Israel is laughing all the way to the bank. They don't care about Americans. They don't care that we're bankrupting ourselves. They don't care about anything other than the fulfillment of their plan of greater Israel. And so they're laughing as we break our backs here. And we are breaking our backs. And you can see it in the panic in Hegseth's mind. I mean, when you take joy out of sinking a ship that had gone to India to participate in a festival, a shipping festival. So it had been paraded on the shores, and now it's off the coast of Sri Lanka, not an active combatant, heading home or heading to wherever they're going to head. And we send a submarine. We're not in a state of war. What legal authority did we have to sink that ship? Did Congress authorize that? We had legal authority, apparently, according to Congress, to preempt the Iranian missile attack against us. But this ship is out there, and we sunk it. The most cowardly act possible. We didn't give it an opportunity. The submarine didn't rise up and say surrender or something like that, send a signal. That ship was sailing, not in combat mode, and we sunk it. And Pete Hegseth is bragging as if this is some sort of example of American martial supremacy. It's something we're supposed to be proud of. No, Pete, we're ashamed of you, and we're ashamed of that action. It's something that the ship's commander should never have done. That submarine commander should never have sunk that ship. That ship posed no threat to anybody. And why did we sink it? Because we can. And don't tell me we're at war, because Congress refuses to declare war. Congress called this a defensive action. I mean, that's what Mike Johnson was saying. It's defensive. Therefore, it's not really a conflict. We don't even get involved. It's purely defensive. Was that a defensive action to send a submarine off the coast of Sri Lanka to sink a ship? Sounded pretty offensive to me. And this is what we're doing on everything. I mean, this is an incompetent campaign that was all premised around the notion of regime collapse. Now that that's failed, now they don't know what they're fighting for. They're just blowing up buildings. And that's all they're doing is blowing up buildings. If you think there's anything inside the buildings being bombed, you're dumber than dirt. Because anything of value has been long since evacuated and hidden in any one of hundreds of hide sites the Iranians have been preparing since 2005. Go back to the history of Firdos, the underground cavern that they put this enrichment capability in wasn't built for Firdos. It was built to hide stuff. It's one of a number of hide sites in the region that were constructed so you can empty empty factories of the high value production equipment, so that when nations like the United States come in and drop bombs on the buildings, all they do is blow up concrete blocks, in other structures. But the high value stuff has been moved. So it's all gone. It's all moved. We're just blowing up empty buildings. We're killing a lot of civilians in the process, but we're not achieving much of anything. The Iranians have been watching the way the United States fights, and I would encourage anybody who takes anything that Pete Hegseth or any American military person at face value today, don't. The Iranians are experts at being Iranians. And what I mean by that is they know their game plan. They've been watching the United States fight since the Gulf War. They understand how the United States and Israel goes about doing various operations. The Iranians are very expert in watching the Israelis operate, because the Iranians have been the number one sponsor of Hezbollah, and there's been Iranian advisors working hand in glove with Hezbollah. So everything.